Definitely.
Okay. Good morning and welcome everybody, and thank you for bearing with us through our technical difficulties this morning. I'm pleased to call this meeting to order, and I will ask Stephanie to do a roll call, please.
Good morning, everyone. Ava Bermuda Zimmerman has not joined us yet. East Canada, that has not joined us yet. Adrian Cochran. Adrian has not joined us yet. Helen Hummel.
Here, I can't really hear you that clearly.
Sheila Hummel.
Present.
Molly Weston Williamson.
Present.
And Justin Zartman.
Present.
All right, unfortunately, we do not have a quorum.
Thank you, Stephanie. So welcome to all of our committee members who are here, and we will proceed without a quorum and take no votes until and unless a quorum appears. I want to take this time to acknowledge any members of the public who are joining us, who are welcome to choose themselves but not required to. We're going to skip item 2 in the agenda because we don't have a quorum. And so we're going to turn it right over to Jessica for the outreach and engagement updates.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Molly. Good morning, everyone. And let me just make this big so everyone can see. And let's start at the beginning. All right. So for this month's update, since we have collaboratively, many of us on the team have been working through preparing the annual report for release, I thought I'd give you an overview of the outreach and engagement efforts for this past fiscal year. So June 1st, 2022 through May 31st, 2023. This is a little sneak peek of what you'll see in the annual report. So we had several different target audiences that we worked on reaching out to this year, including employers, workers, TPAs and payroll providers, HR and benefits administrators, legislators, and sort of a large, I'll say a broader group of individuals who support those who are likely to need our program at some point. That ranged from healthcare providers to social workers, victim services organizations, really any audience we could identify who we thought would be likely to come in contact with the folks who may need to apply for our program at some point. We had 2 main campaigns. We had the worker-focused testimonial campaign, which you saw videos of throughout the course of the year, featuring people talking about their paid leave experience in their own words. And the idea behind this was really to create that emotional connection and to show people in situations that our audience might be able to relate to. So we had, a spouse talking about how her husband had an injury and how paid leave was able to really give her peace of mind when she knew that they would be living off of one income for a bit. We had a couple of families who used bonding leave, and particularly from the dad's standpoint of what that meant to be able to take, a full 8 or 12 weeks to be home with their partner and their children, as well as a woman who used paid leave for her own health condition when she was undergoing cancer treatments. We also had our employer focus campaign. Sorry, I'm just gonna minimize the boxes so I'm not blocking my screen. The employer focused compliance campaign. So really talking about continuing to educate employers about their obligations, encouraging registration, remittance, and then as you saw most recently towards the beginning of this calendar year, switched over to talking about penalties and interest. I'm going to run through each of the different tactics just from a high level overview. This is not necessarily an exhaustive list of everything we've done or everyone we've worked with, but I think it gives a pretty good snapshot of what we've been up to over the course of this past fiscal year. We hosted 58 webinars. Many of those were our own webinars, but we also worked with a number of different partners, including WBDC, CCADV, Connecticut Association of Healthcare at Home, and the others you see listed. We also engaged in a number of panels and speaking engagements, some virtual, some in person. And some of the highlights of those, hard to pick highlights because they were all really, really wonderful, but the Governor's Council on Women and Girls, Erin participated in a panel about domestic violence. Congresswoman DeLauro invited Erin to participate in teletown halls, and we also conducted a media tour with Andrea last summer. Senator Chris Murphy invited Erin to participate in a roundtable on caregiving. So just to highlight a couple of the things that we did there. Our newsletters have continued to be an important way for us to reach out and have constant communication with many of our audiences. We sent out 31 newsletters over the course of the year, and the open rates ranged anywhere from 30 to 50%, which I'm always really, really pleased with that, knowing that our audience is opening and engaging with the content that we're sending. The best performing newsletter was our legislator newsletter. The first one that we sent out had a 65% open rate, which is pretty unheard of. Our private plan employer newsletter also had a really high open rate at 50% and a 25% click-through. And our database currently stands at 142,000 subscribers. One of my projects over the next couple months is working with IT to really just clean that up and scrub it and make sure that everyone is sort of categorized in the best audience that they want to be receiving information about. Digital was a big focus. I'm not going to go into details of each of the different tactics that we use, but just to give you an overview: social media, search engine marketing, geofencing, display, streaming audio, streaming video, and video pre-roll were the tactics that we used. I did want to highlight a couple of social media statistics. We had really great audience growth with many of our platforms. So our Facebook audience grew 22% year over year, LinkedIn grew 53%, and Twitter grew 32%. Important because this is another way for us to connect with folks on an ongoing basis and build up that frequency so that they are aware of us. It also serves as a important tool for us to engage with constituents. I get a lot of messages and comments and things, either people who are having questions or just need a little bit of guidance to work through the application process. So social media is always a really important way for us to connect one-on-one with folks as well. In terms of impressions, Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, over 3 million impressions. LinkedIn, we delivered over 1.5 million, and TikTok over 1.7 million. So we were really out there in full force across all the social media platforms. And then YouTube, which of course we not only post our board and committee meetings, but also our webinars, informational videos, over 660,000 video views and over 440,000 minutes watched. For traditional media, our outdoor campaign, which is billboards that appear along the major highways throughout the state, delivered over 65 million impressions. For TV, I listed the 4 stations that we use. So that was NBC and Telemundo, and also Univision and Unimas. We used 28 radio stations, and in addition to our paid campaigns, we also did 13 interviews. We had a featured piece in the Hartford Business Journal. With our PR efforts, we had a press briefing, which led to a lot of great coverage. We also had op-eds and letters to the editor that were produced. And forgive me for, I guess I carried over 2 of my digital bubbles, so that's what you see at the bottom there. Just a quick talk about the podcast, because I know Nancy has some updates to provide, but one of the things that I really love about the podcast is that Nancy makes really great connections with wonderful guests who then turn into partners that can help us extend our outreach efforts. One example that I think you've heard me talk about before is a military podcast that Nancy did with military caregivers. The spouse of one of the military members that she spoke to ended up being able to introduce us to a group that sort of oversees the support services for all of the National Guard members in Connecticut. And so we were able to go up and present to them, and that led to us being involved in some different events and things of that nature. So that's a really wonderful sort of ancillary benefit of the podcast. In this fiscal year, there were 1,300 downloads, and our total all-time downloads were over 2,000. And Nancy she keeps really busy with it. She does 2 episodes a month, so there were 24 episodes over the course of the year. Legislative outreach, which of course you've been hearing Maddie report on, and she's been doing a fantastic job. Here are some of the efforts that she did just over her short couple of months that she's been with us. She did briefings for each of the legislative caucuses, House and Senate Dems, Black and Puerto Rican caucus, and the Progressive caucus. She also had us invited to participate in the Women's Wellness Fair at the Capitol, sponsored by the Bipartisan Women's Caucus. She worked on updating the legislator toolkit, which we've distributed to legislators. And again, she's been doing monthly newsletters, which are averaging about a 43% open rate. And then lastly, we did a geofencing campaign around the legislative office building just to, again, have that frequency with legislators and their aides who are often fielding constituent questions. And then another area in the report is we talk about how do we gauge the success of our outreach and engagement efforts. So I judge it in 3 ways. One is web traffic, right? Because the thing that we're trying to do is get people to come to our website where they can learn a little bit more about the program. So in terms of our web traffic, we had over 850,000 users, which was a 57% increase year over year, 7.6 million page views, 2.2 million sessions. People are looking at an average of about 3.4 pages per session, and they're spending over 3 minutes on the site. And we had 71% new users and 29% returning users. The map at the bottom just shows you from Google Analytics a distribution of where our web visitors are coming from. You can see the top 10 towns. And similar to last year, and not unexpectedly, the big cities and their surrounding communities tend to have the most visitors to the site. Another way that we look at the outreach and engagement results is business registrations. So as of the end of the last fiscal year, so 5/31/22, we had 137,000 registered businesses. As of the end of this fiscal year, we're up to 145,000, which is an increase of 8,000. That increase is actually even greater because throughout the year, our finance and IT teams work together on cleaning up registrations that may have been made in error. So maybe the company wasn't actually a covered employer, for example. So we really estimate that number to be closer to 9,000. And then we had an increase of over 500 sole proprietors year over year, ending this fiscal year at over 3,300. And then the last way that I look at the success of our efforts is, are we getting people filing claims? So one of the questions that is asked on the AFLAC intake form when someone starts a claim is, where did you hear about Connecticut paid leave? So you can see the breakdown of percentages. Employer led the way at 65%, our website at 11%, family member or friend at 12%, and then the other category at 12%. So this indicates that sort of our broad-based approach of outreach to individuals, to healthcare providers, to support services, to employers seems to be working because we are pulling people in from many different areas. And then lastly, our favorite map that shows our utilization. So the number of applications per 10,000 residents. You can see that while some areas of the state are lighter than others, we are getting applications from all over the state. So we are reaching all 4 corners. And we think that that's an indication that we're doing a fairly good job of getting the word out about our program and educating people so that they know how to apply if they do need it. So I am happy to answer any questions. I know it's a lot of information, but it's a little sneak peek, and you'll be able to read all the details about it in the annual report when we send you that draft for your review.
Thanks so much, Jessica. Before we get to questions for Jessica, I want to pause because I believe we've had a new board member join. Do we need to redo the role? How do we recognize that we have a new board member joining? Because I think that puts us at quorum.
You just did.
Okay. Thank you, Ava, for joining us. So thanks. I think we'll do questions for Jessica, hop back to do voting on minutes, and then hop back in. Do you folks have questions or thoughts for Jessica?
I just have a thought. I just wanted to thank you. I saw some of the social media posts on Pride Month and really pushing out the affinity relationship. It's such a good definition. You know, I'll help with contracts across the country, and I give that definition to other folks that are bargaining in like Florida and some other states. But I really appreciate that you push that out this month and are celebrating Pride Month.
Yeah, thank you. We I think I might have mentioned last month, we're really trying to focus on different themes for each month. And as June is Pride Month, there's so much to talk about just in terms of that affinity definition, who's a family member, transgender healthcare, which Nancy just did a great podcast about. So yeah, we love to be able to kind of latch onto a theme and then let it carry throughout the month. Thank you for that feedback, Justin.
Thank you, and very strongly agree. Do other folks have questions or thoughts for Jessica? I'll just share that I think it's not in this presentation because it's a little older, but the video of introduction of Connecticut paid leave from Connecticut small business owners, which has all the small business owners talking about their experiences. In another state that's working to pass paid leave, they recently put out a call for, do people have stories or experiences from small business owners who've actually dealt with a state paid leave program? And no one else has as beautifully put together and covering all kinds of businesses and really sort of comprehensive as Connecticut did. So it was great to be able to share that and lift it up. And so it's paying dividends in other places.
Wonderful, thank you. And we do, in the new year, not to get too ahead of myself, but we are planning to make some more testimonial videos from the perspective of business owners who now have had employees who have used the program and how that's worked for them. So we hope to kind of expand upon that video and keep it going.
That's amazing. And I will say incredibly valuable in lifting up the work that everyone does and really sharing all of that perspective. Okay. Any other questions for Jessica? So hearing none, I'm going to jump us back in the agenda because we need to vote on the minutes. So is there a motion or any discussion on the minutes from the May meeting?
Make a motion to approve.
Thanks for the motion, Justin. Is there a second?
I second it.
Thank you for the second, Sheila. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the May meeting, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
I believe I hear all ayes. Are there any abstentions? Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it and the minutes are approved. Thanks everyone for bearing with us as we jump around in the agenda a little bit. And now to put us back on track, I'm going to throw it over to Nancy for podcast updates.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful start to your day. And Jess, you were so thorough. I'll try to do this very briefly. So far, we have more than 2,100 downloads for the podcast. And in the last month, we got 127 downloads. And it is Pride Month, as we've already talked about. And Monday, I did release the podcast about navigating the challenges of transgender healthcare. And my guests were Tony Fiorolo. He's a transgender advocate, and he's just an amazing, amazing speaker. And Katie Tierney, she is the medical director of the Middlesex Hospital Center for Gender Medicine and Wellness, and also is an APRN in endocrinology. So she was on the podcast on Monday. So if you didn't catch it, you can go to ctpaidleave.org and you can always get it on our website. My upcoming podcast deals with, Justin, exactly what you talked about, with our broad definition of family and affinity and what chosen family is to the LGBTQ plus community. And my guests are Ace Ricker. He's a pretty well-known public advocate and founder of ACE, and that stands for Awareness Through Communication and Education. So he's out there a lot talking about these issues and chosen family. And also Robin McCallan, she of course was the founder and CEO of True Colors. She's nationally known for her LGBTQ advocacy. So she's on the podcast. And we talk about the definition of family, affinity, and chosen family. So that will be coming up before the end of the month as well. So they're amazing guests. And like Jess said, you get these connections and they're like, now that I know about this and what it is, everybody else is going to know about it. So I have to say that really the guests are so spectacular to get a good communication with, and they're just wonderful people that I can talk to and get a little more information out of. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Nancy. Any questions or thoughts for Nancy? Hearing none, I'll throw it to Maddie for legislative updates.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Also just have a really brief update. Since the legislative session ended just last week on Wednesday, I'm working on a legislative report right now that includes bills that did and didn't pass that will impact our work either operationally or things that we should be aware of for our outreach and education purposes as well. Also working with Jess on the annual report and other outreach initiatives right now, which we're excited about. Just yesterday, Nancy, Aaron, and I were at the Home Care Association of America Connecticut chapter, their conference. Nancy and I had a table there, and Aaron provided a really great presentation to the group about just like with an overview of paid leave and answered some pretty tough questions too. So it was a good event and glad we did it. So that's it.
Thanks, Maddie. Any questions or thoughts for Maddie? Okay, hearing none, is there any old business anyone would like to raise? Hearing none, is there any new business anyone would like to raise? Okay. Unless there's anything else, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thanks, Justin. Motion for Justin. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks. I think I heard Sheila first, so we'll count it to a second from Sheila. All those in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
We can count that as the ayes have it on adjourning. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you again for bearing with us through some technical difficulties, and we'll see you all next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.